Welcome one and all, Nyanko here, and today I'm here to talk about a older style show, an older show that I got into when I used to watch Anime Central back in the day, when it was still airing, called, and wait for it, what, ta-da-da, Wolf's Rain! So this one for me is a very dear manga. Like, I even have all of the box set and it's really hard to get hold of these days. Thank you, eBay. So yeah, if you don't know what Wolf's Rain is and you've never watched it before, it's kind of in the title. It's about wolves, and the wolves can take human form to disguise themselves, and it's set in a kind of dystopian future where wolves are thought to be extinct, but at the same time there's a myth about the wolves leading people to paradise and then getting into paradise, or like being the key to open paradise. So it starts out with a young wolf called Kiba, who is on his way to find the flower maiden Cheza, who is the catalyst for helping him find his way to paradise. And Kiba's backstory is basically that all of his clan was wiped out when he was a pup, and then he was found by an elderly gentleman and he lived with him, and then for whatever reason they part ways. I believe it's because the elderly gentleman dies, but it's been a hot minute since I watched it last year because it was on Amazon Prime again, and I have the DVDs, but I want to keep those in pristine condition, so I was watching it on Amazon Prime. So I think it's that the gentleman dies and that he then goes on his way, or it's that the gentleman's like, oh, you must go and find your destiny, something like that. Go watch it out to find out which one it is. And then he kind of ends up, so Kiba then comes into the city, gets caught, or is captured and brought into the city, and he kind of meets up with Hige, who is kind of a bit of a chubby wolf who's on the prowl for a lady wolf, but he's like in disguise. Then you also come across Sume, who is kind of like the leader of a gang who's constantly stealing things from people. Then you've also got Turboy, who ends up being like, he's like a pup who joins the gang last, but he kind of becomes quite close with Sume because he's the most naive of them, and he was raised by a lady who thought that he was a puppy, and he accidentally murdered her. Not maliciously, but like he was so big and he was so excited one day he kind of jumped on her and crushed her to death, basically. So yeah, they all kind of join together and then start on their way to find paradise and to find Cheza, to take hold of her and have her help them go to paradise. And as you go along, you find out that Cheza is actually a flower that was made into like a human form through alchemy, and that she's not got much longer to live. And to be honest, it's a very bleak setting, and the story is very bleak in a lot of ways. It's really good in the sense of showing like environmental disaster. There's other side characters, so you've got Cher, who is like the ex-wife of like a detective, I forget his name, but I'll put his name under his picture, who she's, so her role was she was researching Cheza, and then Cheza gets stolen and she's on her way to try and find her as well, and then he kind of is following her. There's this old crazy guy, I always forget his name, I just call him old crazy guy, who has a little like half wolf dog called Blue, but he doesn't realise she's half wolf. It's the other guys who realise they're half wolf. And then Blue ends up kind of betraying him, joining up with the wolves, and her and Hige become a thing, and it's really cute. So like, even though it's quite a bleak, dark setting, there is still hope, and there's still love, and there is still bonds, and it's really nice. Heartbreaking, warning, don't go into this thinking that you will come out of it unscathed. It will break even the toughest of people. So yeah, as they're going along trying to find paradise, Kiba is like devout, we will find paradise, kind of obsessed with it. And he also becomes obsessed with Cheza throughout, and there's kind of a hint that those two are in love. And then you have the bad guy, Darsha, who comes into it, who's desperately trying to find paradise because he wants to save the love of his life, who was hit by the curse that runs in his family, because his family is cursed for some reason. I always forget the reason, but it slowly drives him insane. There's other like bad guy characters in the background. So there's like Jagara, who is the twin sister of Darsha's love, and she loved him and wanted his affection, but he never saw her. He only saw the twin sister, and there's all that drama in the background. But yeah, as you go along, Pops, who is like the grumpy old guy, I only ever know him as Pops because of Blue, he starts realising that maybe these particular wolves aren't so bad, but he's still hunting them because he believes that wolves killed his family, when even Blue says wolves didn't kill his family, they just were there at the end of it. You know, it's heavily hinted that one of the nobles kind of killed his family, but then because the wolves were like, so the wolves were being hunted by the nobles because the nobles wanted to find paradise. And then what happens is one of the teams of hunters destroys his village, Pops' village, and kills his family, because there's wolves hiding in the village. And then Pops sees the wolves fleeing after the fact and believes that it's the wolves that killed his family, and not putting all the pieces together, and he kind of then turns to alcohol, and he's quite grumpy, and he's not very nice to Blue, and Blue just dotes on him and loves him to pieces and is always trying to save him. But yeah, it's a really good show. It's like 26 episodes. It's well paced. You get background into all of the characters. So you kind of see everybody's backgrounds. You find out, like I said, you find out Kiba's backstory, you find out Sume's backstory, you find out Turboy's backstory, pretty early on really for Turboy, but then Turboy kind of becomes quite attached to Sume, and they kind of pair up quite a bit. And then Hige kind of pairs up with Blue, and then you've also got the thing with Kiba and Cheza, and them all trying, like, because they keep losing Cheza. Like, they have her, and then they escape, and then she gets captured again, and then they have to go back and get her, and then they escape again, and then she gets captured again, and yeah, it's really good. It's really hard to put into words how amazing it is. Now, I watched it in English, and I've only actually ever seen it in English. But I know that the voice cast for the Japanese is like top tier. One of my favourite voice actors, Mamoru Miyano, is in it. He plays Kiba, I believe. And then Johnny Young Bosch is the English for Kiba. Oh, I love him so much. Like the entire voice cast is stellar. As I said, I've only seen it in English, but I know of other projects that the Japanese voice cast have worked in that I have watched it in, and it's so good. So good. So like, it's stellar casting on both sides of it. You know, it's gritty, it's dark, it's got serious messages in it about environmental issues, and then when it comes to like the end of it, it's not an ending you'd see in Hollywood. That's all I'll say. I don't want to spoil the ending, because it's so good. So good. And you really should watch it. If you haven't watched it by now, like, what do you call yourself an otaku? Huh. You are not an otaku if you have not seen Wolf's Rain. I put it up there with, like, classic. For me, it's one of the classics alongside Death Note and Code Geass and Cowboy Bebop. Those would be, like, classics for me that go alongside Wolf's Rain, and you know, you have no excuse if you've not watched it yet. It's like, it's hard to get hold of now because I'm not sure if the license has expired on it, or if they don't print it anymore, but like, you can usually find it on eBay. It is on Prime, so you can watch it on Amazon Prime if you've got it. Do I think it's on Netflix? No, it's not on Netflix. It's as far as I'm aware, it's on and off of Prime, so it kind of comes and goes. But yeah, so definitely, if you can find it on Prime, give it a watch. Highly recommend. If you can even get hold of the DVDs on Amazon or eBay, I'd probably recommend eBay for better prices, because more people might be trying to sell them off cheap there. Kiba for me is a really like, he's a really cool character. He's very focused, he's very driven, you know, but at the end of the day they're all still wolves, and I think that's what people forget. So something that I really liked about it was I think they studied wolf behaviour, because the wolves do act a lot like real animals, you know. They have the pack mentality, but they've also got their lone wolfness, they've got their stubbornness, you know. All of them are just trying to survive in this world that is dying, because you see that through it. There's different domes as you go through where different nobles live, and the nobles have all the power and the wealth, but then they do leave enough for people. So each noble has like their own faction, and then the factions are fighting, and the more you get into the storyline as well, the more you realise that humanity is literally on the brink of destruction. So that's why the nobles are desperately fighting to try and find their way into paradise. It's why the wolves are now trying to go to paradise as well, because they felt the call. Now if you read the manga, because there was a short manga made up after the anime, it's very different, and you get a different ending in the manga than you do to the anime. So the way the anime ends is kind of death and rebirth, that's all I'm going to say, whereas in the manga it's just the end of the Ice Age. So the way it ends in the manga is that the Ice Age ends and humanity has the ability to regrow and rebuild on the earth, whereas in the anime it's a bit more brutal, but everyone does get an ending. It may not be the exact ending that you wanted for them, but everyone does get an end, whereas in the manga it's kind of left, you know, open, and certain characters from the anime don't appear in the manga, and some of the storylines are different and changed around, and the dialogue is different. I do need to get my hands on the manga because I want to officially have it in my collection. I read it online basically after I finished the series. Now this is going back a good while now. It's been a long time since I read the manga. But yeah, watch it. It's on Prime. You have no excuse. I know most people have Amazon Prime these days, or, you know, have access to it, or you can get the free a week of like Prime sometimes when you're ordering on Amazon, and it will let you watch it then. So yeah, do try and watch Wolf's Rain if you haven't already. If you have already watched it, let me know down below what you thought of it and who your favourite character is and why. I happen to like Sheza and I like Kiba, but Toboy is kind of like baby puppy that I really want to smother with love, smuggle into my pocket and smother him. But yeah, like I said, let me know who your favourite character was, and if you go and watch it because I recommended it, let me know what you think of it after you've watched it. But other than that, kittens, I'm going to give you all of my love. I hope you remember to eat something, drink something, and don't forget any medication if you're on them, my darlings. And I will see you in the next video. Au revoir!